All right. Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time this evening. Normally we say this morning, but we're doing an evening show because we are interviewing candidates. By the way, if you are a candidate and you want to get in on the interviews, go ahead and book yourself at candidates.libertydad.com. You can find the link in the show notes. Our available times are Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 7:30 a.m. and then Wednesday and Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. All times are Eastern. Speaking of candidates, I have coming up tomorrow, 7:30 a.m., I have Andrew Underwood running for U.S. House out of Georgia's 14th District. And then tomorrow evening at 7:30 p.m., Alan Buckley, who is running for U.S. Senate, also out of Georgia. So look forward to that. Tonight's guest joins us from Wisconsin to discuss his run for city council. So please welcome Reese Wood to the show. Reese, how are you, sir?
Doing good, DL. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into this because I know that you have a packed schedule. So tell people who you are and why you decided to, run for office. Nobody likes politicians these days anyway.
Oh, that is the truth. That is partly why I'm running, though.
Oh, so you don't have any, so you don't have friends. Got it.
No, you nailed it. Yeah, man, I won't go in depth there, but I'll just go all the way back to Ron Paul. Like a lot of libertarians, that's what brought me to the party.
Okay.
Of course, I wasn't bold enough to throw my vote behind him. Voted Obama in that election. Strongly regretted it soon after, and for that reason, the next election I was out doing door hangers for Gary Johnson. Got to meet Judge Jim Gray at a local event here in Milwaukee, and it was just really inspirational in that time. So not soon at all. A couple years later, I started paying attention to the state party here in Wisconsin,
Hmm.
and they had some candidates running. Uh, they were standing out at least, which really matters as a candidate. But I decided to help with signatures. I think maybe around 2015, 2016, finally
Okay.
doing some signatures to get people on the ballot. I ran my first campaign for state assembly in 2018 for the 45th district,
Hmm.
um, which is South Central Wisconsin, and did pretty good. Got I think 19% in that
Yeah.
race in a one-way
Yeah.
race against career Democrat. Um, but
Hmm.
I ran again in 2020, and of course that was during COVID, really hard to get signatures. I got just enough to get on the ballot. Unfortunately, both parties had their lawyers go through my signatures, and I was taken off the ballot. So I learned a hard lesson during COVID on making sure your signatures are all valid, and especially if you live in what they call gerrymandered areas, make
Hmm.
sure there's no islands, areas that are cut out. uh, that election was just hard in general. I think there was no third party candidates in Wisconsin to get on the ballot. So it, it was kind of surprising that that happened. But
Let me ask you, do you, if you're looking back, because they used the lawfare on you, do you think that you were somewhat of a threat? Because I'm looking at the numbers here, and it's about a 60-40 split between the Democrat and the Republican. Do you think that they were concerned that you might take some votes from them, or were they just playing dirty? Because I know sometimes people come in and make a splash and they ruffle some feathers, or was that just kind of business as usual for them?
I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, business as usual is the biggest way to point in that. But I personally, I would say that I did pretty good in 2018. I only
Mhm.
raised $800 against, like I said, a career Democrat who raised $33,000 in that
Oh, wow.
election. So we did really well. In fact, one little tidbit that I like to add is that election 2018, cannabis was on the ballot for a referendum across the state, and I was the very pro cannabis candidate in that election, while the Democrat I was running against and other Democrats in Wisconsin were still on the fence. The science wasn't conclusive enough for them on if they should be supportive on that issue, even though in Wisconsin it's got on average 65 to 70% approval in
Mhm.
with Wisconsin residents. So um, and of course, in the largest voting municipality in that race, they came up short on ballots the night of the election, which put off voters for, I think it was like 45 minutes late at night.
Mhm.
And it definitely had an impact on the votes. But it motivated me in the next election. And that was one where my signatures were challenged.
Mhm.
But yes, so when these things happen, challenges are going to happen, especially if you're a good candidate. I think everybody knows that, but you learn it sometimes firsthand, and it's still surprising, but it shouldn't
Right.
be, I guess. But
So what have you done differently this time around to help try to prevent that issue from happening again? Like other than
yeah,
obviously making sure that your signatures, because I've heard of other candidates and at the local level who are like, look, the signature thing is just it's an uphill battle, it's a lot of work, and they just decide I'd rather pay the not the fine, but I guess I guess it's the same thing, but they'd rather pay the fee to get on the ballot just because it's a little bit more guaranteed and you don't have to, deal with, oh, well, this signature is no good or whatever,
right.
what kind of games they play. So what are you doing this time around that's different?
Well, so in Wisconsin, every state's different, but in Wisconsin, you have to get those signatures. So if you don't get them, you are not on the ballot.
Got it.
There's no other option. And this time around, I had more volunteers help. We only had to raise 100 signatures. I think we turned in like 130. So uh, we basically had more volunteers this time, and that part of
Mhm.
that is just staying consistent from the first campaign, making sure you stay up on your social media, so people don't lose track of what you're doing. try to know that you're still
Mhm.
community some way, and for it kind of paid off to stay active over the years. There was a brief time I took a little bit of break before the pandemic happened, but obviously when the pandemic happened, uh, it was not a time that I could stay out and just sit on the sideline.
Mhm.
I think like everybody, I was worried what was going to happen, and yeah. But so this time around, we have a lot more people involved, and it's a smaller race, but it is a unique race. It really is. There's 3 open seats. They're at-large positions,
Okay.
and 2 incumbents are running for re-election. There's 4 non-incumbents, and but the big issue in Janesville, at least right now, is a local proposal for a data center,
Mhm.
which is like throughout Wisconsin, it's controversy because uh, whether people want to focus on the environmental impact of the data centers or the development proposal aspect itself, the controversy is pretty much everywhere when it comes to the data centers in Wisconsin. Um, you could start with the development proposals. That's what I like to focus on.
Okay.
Basically, there's NDAs involved.
Mhm.
Usually, a developer has to have an NDA, and the city staff has to sign it, not necessarily the local elected representatives, but city staff. So, in doing that, it basically limits competition. Competitors don't know that there's any potential deal going on. It stifles free market competition right there. And that's my big, for me, that's the paramount issue.
Mhm.
Uh, in Janesville, the city had just acquired this property. It was a former car plant. General Motors built cars there for almost 100 years. And when they closed down in 2008, it sat vacant. The private owner let it sit vacant, and they couldn't make a sale for a development of any kind until they sold the property to the city for $1 in about 6 months ago, 6, 7 months ago. So the city had not had the property a very long time when one specific developer wanted to make a proposal, surprisingly. And of course, the NDA aspect made the community very unhappy because they said, well, we're going to start out with zero transparency from what it
Mhm.
sounds like. And what was surprising to me, it was in Janesville, I keep up with people, and it was conservatives and liberals who were very much against the proposal for one reason or another. Like I said, some environmental, some development, all for different reasons. A lot of people were against it, so much that one of the candidates in this race raised 4,600 signatures to bring the development, or at least developments similar to this, to a referendum.
Mhm.
So that was seeing that happened inspired me to get into the race. I saw people really make it a nonpartisan issue. How
Gotcha.
often do you see that happen? And I
Right.
think as libertarians, that's what we're always looking for. What are the issues, especially on a local level? What are the issues that are uniting people? Because
Mhm.
we're always told everybody is divided. We're told that by the media all the time. And I think people really feel that. In fact, I think that's why we see so few people show up to elections.
Mhm.
It's not the majority of the country showing up and electing our representatives. It's fewer than we'd like to think, and it's but
So
that yeah.
let me ask you, because you're saying like there's community dissatisfaction with this idea of a data center, and it includes conservatives, it includes liberals, not necessarily the same reason. If you had to guess percentage wise, and it looks like you've got about 65,000 people that live
Yes.
in Janesville. So out of that 65 percentage wise, about how many do you suppose really oppose this? Is it like a majority? Is it just a little bit under a majority, but still a huge number? Like what would you guess?
So that's a good question. I put it in perspective a little differently.
Okay.
At least at a most recent forum, I pointed out that it takes maybe a couple thousand votes to get on city council,
Hmm.
and so 4,600 is almost twice.
Right.
Um, uh, in this race, even if it took 5,000, that's a whole city council candidate vote right there. But to get signatures to get on the ballot is 100 signatures.
Mm,
So that's a perspective I look at. One person, well, it was a group of people, but one person organized it and made it happen. So that percentage, at least the 4,600 number of people
mhm,
are opposed to it in some way. But I would say if they had, the hard part about making that assessment is they had to collect signatures from December through January.
mm,
And, it's
mm.
the worst time of year in Wisconsin. We had
Right.
0-degree temps, below zero. There was freezing rain. It was
And people
terrible.
were motivated.
Yes, yes. So if they would have had another month, how much more would they have got? I believe they could have got at least a third more, if not way more. But it's hard to speculate.
So are you baking this into your campaign then? And if so, how?
I'm actually focusing on the data center less than the some of the other candidates in this race.
Okay.
Uh, the main issue for me is transparency and accountability and having proactive communication. That
Mhm,
was the first thing that I noticed, and it's been a reoccurring theme in Janesville. Every year there's a development proposal of some kind or a
mhm,
city council vote that the whole community just says there's outcry against it. And you can gauge it because the media covers it, and it's not just a handful of people. Before this, we had a Woodman's, which is our local like grocery store. They proposed a local event center attached to the local mall, and
mhm,
obviously, like a lot of malls, ours not keeping up, kind of falling behind in the times. So this development proposal was controversial because we're reviving something we don't know if it's revivable, and we're attaching a bunch of taxpayer money for it. And these things, like I said, come up every year, and the problem is we have city councilors who probably like across the country, they just they have a sense of entitlement and a I know better attitude. And in this race specifically, there's a lot of that attitude saying that if you're against the data center in any way, that you're being emotional. And it's
mhm.
been said by local broadcasters and uh, local podcasters. And
Hey, I'm a podcaster. What's your response to that?
what do you mean?
When they say, "Hey, you're being emotional
Oh
about
yeah,
this," what is your response when because you're a candidate,
I love it.
and
Yeah,
so
I
how
love.
do you how do you respond? Because that's hopefully not a gotcha for you.
No, it's very much emotion goes two ways, and it's usually the person making that statement not seeing where they're coming from emotionally.
Mhm,
There's very much, for people to say if you're against the data center proposal and you're emotional, well, those people seem to have very strong emotions about being pro for the data center. At least in Janesville, the reason you would be pro for the data center is because that site where it's being proposed is that environmentally contaminated. It's actually been declared a brown site, and the
mm,
current developer is making a very good deal to basically remediate the whole site, which is great. Um, but if you're going to put in something that could have potential environmental implications in the same way that the past developer that was there also had issues, further down the road, we found out the true implications of the environmental issues. It's pretty much the same thing with data centers. There's some science saying that using the right methods that you can eliminate environmental waste issues, water consumption issues, uh, issues with decibels and hearing problems that people report. There's all
mm,
kinds of stuff. But so, I mean, basically, the hardest part is the developers making a sweet deal. It's
mhm.
golden. But like I said, the city's only had the property for half a year, maybe. And this is the first development proposal. And when you start it with an NDA, that means there's no competition that's going to happen. And
Right.
that's probably
And
the least libertarian thing.
so if I understand you correctly, you are not necessarily for or against it. Is that correct? You're more concerned with, hey, the lack of transparency because people can't have, they can't engage in informed consent on whether or not they wanted it. Is that where your position actually lies?
Exactly. If I would have been a counselor when this development proposal first went through, there would have been a press release that went out and said, hey, city staff was offered an NDA. Not one of our counselors did that. Actually, the local radio station had to do a FOIA request to get the details. And um, so transparency is just the paramount issue in this election. If we could get one or two, at least one counselor on there who's going to be proactive with communication, that's what I'm trying to push with my campaign. Neighborhood meetings, town halls, whatever we have to do to facilitate communication ahead of city council meetings, so
Gotcha.
people don't feel that there's some disconnect. Hey, we can go to the city council meeting and make a public comment, but if you guys have ever attended a city council meeting or watched one online, you'll know you're not getting a response from your council members.
Right.
You're talking at them, and that's it.
Yes. Yes, yes. I there are videos of me going to our local city council and talking and like even asking questions. And I even, as far as I knew, I did it the proper format. So you're not supposed to talk to like you're not like we have like 19 council members. You're not supposed to like talk directly to a council member unless you've been given permission. You're supposed to direct everything toward the chair. So I was directing things toward the chair at the time, and he was just like looking at his phone. And so then I was like, "Excuse me, I think I'm talking to you," and I was a little bit rude about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I've seen videos. I just saw a video today of a guy out of New Hampshire. I can't remember exactly which city, but out of New Hampshire, and he went. All he said at one point, he called somebody in the meeting, one of the council members, a petty tyrant. That was
Mm,
it. And they like flip out and they're like, we need to go to recess, blah, blah, blah. You need to leave. And they're like they got up and they actually, I think they actually went to recess
wow.
over petty tyrant. So yeah, while I encourage people to go to your city council, just know you might have to elevate your voice a little bit to make sure that it's heard. Just saying.
Yes, definitely.
So
I agree.
how are people receiving? So on one hand, we've got emotional people. Not I'm not saying that, I'm just kind of repeating what's been
No,
said.
it's fine.
We've got emotional people, okay, which means they have strong feelings about it. They're
Yes,
passionate about this, and that's fine. That's great. Actually, I would rather people be passionate, even if I disagree with them totally. So they're passionate, and then they hear you talking and saying, "Look, I'm not necessarily for or against it," which makes sense if you don't know the details. Um, and then you're saying like, but I really want transparency. How do the people that have passionate perspectives, how do they take that? Are they like, well, that's a fair point and I could see having somebody on, or are they like, no, I want this or I don't want this?
it's hard to say because it's new. It's new in terms of discussion.
Mhm,
I try to focus on the issues. Like I said, my platform is transparency and accountability, long-term fiscal sustainability, and then community engagement.
mhm.
So they're very simple issues, but when people, the emotional aspect has been coming up so much that I've kind of made it a point to kind of address it
Mhm.
because I see emotion on both sides of it, and uh, but it's an unfair point to really make because, like you said, people should be emotionally invested in some way. To disregard that you are is to be unaware, I guess, or not self-aware.
Right. And
And
it's funny because like citizens are just regular everyday people.
right,
And I've said this before about our city council. I'm like, look, sometimes they come in, they drop a profanity or two, and you guys get all butthurt about it. And you are the city council members. You guys need to get over it. If somebody's dropping f bombs left and right, and they're just really going crazy, then sure, yeah, maybe we say, all right, you need to dial it down there, Fred.
yeah,
But if it's just a profanity here or there because they're in a raw, uncensored, they just got off work, they've been working really hard all week, they're not down there giving perfect speeches. They're down there just kind of the raw emotion that they have and how they feel about the place that they live. So
right.
I say, bring it, and it's
We're
okay.
all adults.
Yeah, and I can hear a bad word. I'm okay. I'm a big boy.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's not often that you see a crowd of kids in a council meeting, but I don't know, gauge the room appropriately.
Right. So do you have right now, because I don't see a spot that lists all the candidates. Do you have one or two opponents? Like what are your opponents or opponent singular? What does that look like right now?
Oh, well, the two incumbents are, um, I don't, one of them has been on the council on and off for almost 20 years.
Okay.
And so obviously I'm not a big fan of that. I'm very pro term limits. And
Mhm.
even if you take a break, I think elections need more candidates and more options in them. When you see the same people showing up year after year, it says a lot about the civic engagement in that community. And
Right.
so for us in Janesville, yeah, that it says a lot. And that's one candidate. Hang on a second here. I got
Sure. We're taking a brief pause for a moment because it's the Liberty Dad Show, and well,
and
my
I
man's got
got
kids.
yeah, he's filling up his cup back here.
No
But
worries. Sometimes
so
mine jumps in, and you every now and then you see him make an appearance.
yeah, he's right next to me gaming. So
Awesome.
but so and then the other incumbent is I would say a really business oriented guy. He's um they're both good people. I'm not going to
Mhm.
say anything bad about them as people, that's for sure. But in terms of representation, I think we'd be better off with three new people in there. We have, like I said, four challengers in this race, and one of them works out of the local state representative's office, the Democrat uh, state representative Clint Anderson. He's a staffer there in that guy's office, which his name's Shane Seaman or
Mhm.
Seaman. He's a great guy. He's very down to earth, working class. Seems like he would be great on the council. Transparent. The other one is Cassandra Pope, and she has collected signatures, all those petition signatures. So she is not just an activist, but she goes to council meetings.
Mhm.
And these are people. If you can go out and get those number of signatures, well, I think you can probably survive as a council member at least for one term.
Right.
Um, Highly likely. Another candidate, Ben Dobson, he's one of my favorite candidates in this race. He's done something unique that I'm sure a lot of libertarians have thought about, but he's not raising money. He's not doing yard signs. He works out of the local county office. He's a supervisor there, and he's very connected in the community. He knows people face to face. He
Mm.
goes to committee meetings. Um, so, in terms of uh, the candidates in this race, they're all great, but I would prefer to see three people, new faces in there. And I think
Gotcha.
I'm hoping that's the way it goes. But the incumbents they're hard to beat
So
because
do you not run for a specific seat then? Is that how it works?
they're all at large. So it's all basically the whole coverage is Janesville. There's no
Right.
specific wards or
Oh,
areas.
okay. Because like here in Jacksonville, we have 19 council members. We have 5 at-large seats, and so if you obviously the district seats, you have to live in the district to run for those seats. But the at-large seats, you can be anywhere in the city, but you do have to file for specifically one of those seats. Is that the case there? Is that where you have to file for a specific at-large 1, 2, or 3, or is it just I'm running for at-large, whichever one if I get
Yep,
on the board, I get on the board.
yep, all at large.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's really wide open. So you campaign the whole city, and that's what we're trying to do right now. We have I purchased 100 yard signs, and we're getting close to almost half of them out there. But
Hmm.
we have a month left before the election, so I'm pushing to do other meet and greets. That's been one big thing we're doing in this election. I actually did one meet and greet where I invited all the other candidates. I invited the incumbents. I invited the four challengers, and the challengers all came, but the incumbents, one of them said he's comfortable with all of the engagements that are already on the schedule for us
Gotcha.
as candidates. And the other one, he only has his email available as a contact, but he's not a guy who checks his email. You have my business card. If you have my business card, you can contact me that way.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
and he's the guy who's been on the council 20 years. So
Wow. So you have I'm looking at the Forward Janesville webpage, and you have 35 seats that are up for election on April 7th. 3 city council, 3 school board, and 29 Rock County Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
So my next question is, you get elected to the city council. What's your interaction with those other 2 offices, the school board and then the Rock County Board of Supervisors?
That is an awesome question. I'm not actually clear what that would consist of because um, in my past, I was like a morning show broadcaster on community radio, and I had the school district in. I'm actually still acquainted with some of the people who are in serving in the school district in Janesville, but I don't know what our immediate connection would be with them. They're kind of their own separate governance,
Okay.
but
And that's how
and
it is sometimes. I'm not, I'm just asking because I don't know. I know that here, the school board and the city council, they're separate entities.
yeah,
And there's a limited, like when it comes to budgeting and stuff like that. But otherwise they're pretty separate. So, but I wasn't sure if that was the same way up there in Janesville.
now the one entity you mentioned, just where you got the information forward, Janesville, they're our local chamber,
Hmm.
and they're the most interesting aspect, I would say, in the community because they have a strong influence, probably like most chambers do, but
Hmm.
they, um, they seem to be, and I could be wrong, but they seem to be highly in favor of things like TIF districts, and that's one thing I'm pushing back a little bit on in this election because we have to be pragmatic, especially when we're running as libertarians at the local level. We're not saying we're going to get rid of everything. We're not trying to scare everyone off because that's the way to do it. I would get
Right.
rid of everything and such and such.
Right.
But TIF districts, you can't get rid of them, especially when all the municipalities around you are uh, offering the same deals. So, but what you can do is make a firm position that I would approve or support possibly TIF districts for, in my case, I've said housing development. I would be against TIF district deals that are for business developments or corporate type developments. I'm just not in favor of that. I think we should be inviting, at least for Janesville, we're actually geographically located central to the Midwest.
Hmm.
For example, that GM site has a rail that runs right through it
Hmm.
because they used to build cars there. So our location is what we should be selling to developers. We should be saying, hey, this is the Midwest, especially for things that I've mentioned in forums so far, is like maybe a hemp manufacturing plant or a processing plant, so that we can actually kickstart an industry that Wisconsin could be booming at.
Hmm.
Um, Janesville used to have multiple lumber yards, and now we have one Menards, the big box store, and
Right.
yeah, no, I forgot we do have a Home Depot also. But we used to have local lumber yards, which means your materials were more available. That's when prices were better. And I feel like, hemp's one of those industries where we could be making housing materials, insulation, composite materials, concrete. We're not doing it. And why Wisconsin's not leading that, I don't know.
Gotcha.
So I try to push that.
Gotcha. So I know we're getting close to a time. You've got a hard stop here. What else do voters need to know about you? And then bake into that also how people can support and help you.
And so I think we've gone over it. Just in general,
Mhm.
transparency and accountability. I'm sure you guys have picked up by watching so far.
So there he is.
I'm not the kind of guy to pre-plan or script everything I talk about. I'm very personal, and that's what I plan to do when I'm on city council. If elected, I'll probably wear my Cheap Trick shirt to my first council meeting or something like that,
Mhm, mhm.
stand out. But uh,
Right.
I'm a down-to-earth guy, and that's all I want people to know. If you want to reach out to me, the best way to find me is on Facebook. I know not everyone's a fan of that, but at least in this race, it is very important in terms of activity. So you can find me on Facebook, um, email RW, or geez, I've had a couple of them, RWI 2026,
Mhm.
RW4WI 2026 at Gmail.
Right.
Um, But yeah, I would recommend Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, LPWI chair,
Okay.
Instagram also. But
Gotcha.
like I said, I'm available everywhere, and I would be happy to take any questions anyone would have. Just send me a message.
All right. Awesome. Well, sir, I know you got to get going. So I'm going to put you backstage. If you need to just drop off, you can do that. If you want to stick around for just a moment while I'm closing, we can chat for a few minutes after the show. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been great learning a little bit about Janesville, a city that is in an entirely different state, um, way up north, like from my perspective, way up north,
Yeah.
because I'm in Florida. It's nice and toasty down here.
Oh
So,
yeah.
all right, sir, I would put you backstage,
Thank you.
and best of luck in your race.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Deal.
Yes, sir. All right, folks. It was a short one tonight, but man's busy. He's got some other commitments that he's got to make. I was glad to have him on, and I hope that you found this episode informative and inspiring. Do me a favor, stop back by later, drop a comment. Let me know, did I miss anything? Was there a question that I should have asked? Or maybe you just want to say, hey, good job, guys. Whatever the case, I'm all ears. But with that being said, I'm out and I will see you tomorrow. You know that I'm all about supporting organizations that hold my values. Make sure you head on over to blackgunsmatter.shop. They've got apparel, stickers, and more. Use the code LibertyDad, all one word, at checkout to score a 10% discount. Or just hit the referral link in the show notes. That'll make it so much easier. Remember, I'm not just a voice on a mic. I'm a dad who's working hard to deliver to you the best libertarian content. Connect with me on Linktree, where you'll find links to my Patreon and buy me a coffee, because every bit helps keep this show rolling. Plus, you can find me on my other platforms to stay in the loop. With your help, this show, The Message of Liberty, will be seen and heard by more people. As always, I appreciate you tuning in.